When you think of California wealth, you immediately picture Silicon Valley tech bros in fleece vests or Hollywood Nepo babies driving depreciating supercars. You are looking in the completely wrong direction. Hidden behind the sprawling gated estates of Atherton and the heavily guarded corporate boardrooms of San Jose operates a shadow network of untouchable capital. We are tracking the elite Filipino dynasties who quietly bought the physical and digital infrastructure of the American West. From inventing modern social media algorithms to monopolizing global microchips in complete, terrifying anonymity, these are the 10 richest Filipino families in California. The countdown begins now. Number 10. The Evangelista Network. The monetization of influence. We begin our descent into this hidden wealth ecosystem with a figure who bridges the gap between regional fame and international hard capital. Hard Evangelista is widely recognized as a global fashion icon, but viewing her strictly through the lens of a social media influencer is a fundamental miscalculation of her business architecture. She represents the new wave of Filipino wealth that converts digital attention into offshore equity. The money was originally generated through a heavily curated decades-long career in the Philippine entertainment industry. However, acting salaries are subject to brutal tax rates and the fleeting nature of public attention. To protect and multiply this wealth, Evangelista executed a sophisticated geographical pivot. She transitioned from regional television into the highly exclusive, high-margin world of European luxury brand ambassadorships, dealing directly with houses like Dior, Chanel, and Yves Saint Laurent. But her true power move was where she parked that freshly minted international capital. Instead of leaving her liquid assets vulnerable in emerging markets, she aggressively acquired premium real estate in California. By establishing a physical footprint in the ultra-competitive Los Angeles property market, she successfully insulated her net worth from the macroeconomic volatility of Southeast Asia. California real estate functions as her ultimate appreciating vault. What most people completely misunderstand about Evangelista is the corporate nature of her operation. The general public looks at her Instagram feed and sees a woman buying expensive bags. Financial analysts look at her operation and see a highly efficient one-woman B2B marketing firm with zero inventory costs, massive global reach, and profit margins that would make a Silicon Valley software CEO incredibly jealous. She is not a consumer of luxury. She is a high-yield corporate entity, extracting massive capital from the world's oldest fashion houses and burying it deep into the California dirt. Number 9. The Marcelo Syndicate. The infrastructure of trust. Sheila Marcelo did not invent a new microchip or build a flashy social media app. She looked at the American economy and realized that its most critical foundation was utterly broken. She recognized that the entire corporate workforce relies on a secondary, invisible workforce, caregivers. By founding Care.com, she didn't just start a business, she digitized, monopolized, and corporatized the multi-billion-dollar care economy. Marcelo made her fortune by solving the ultimate friction point for wealthy California professionals, finding reliable childcare and senior care. She built a massive two-sided digital marketplace. The genius of a two-sided marketplace is the network effect. Every time a new babysitter joined the platform, it became more valuable to parents. Every time a new parent joined, it became more valuable to caregivers. Once the flywheel started spinning, it became a geographic monopoly. To protect this immense wealth creation, Marcelo executed the ultimate Silicon Valley exit strategy. After taking the company public and navigating the brutal regulatory scrutiny of Wall Street, she eventually facilitated the sale of Care.com to the massive holding company IAC for roughly $500 million. She successfully converted a high-stress operational CEO role into pure liquid capital. Her ultimate power move was her second act. Marcelo did not retire to a beach. She transitioned immediately into a venture partner role, anchoring herself deep within the California venture capital ecosystem. She now dictates where the next generation of capital flows, specifically targeting female-founded tech startups and Web3 infrastructure. What the public fundamentally misunderstands about Sheila Marcelo is her product. They assume she built a website for babysitters. In reality, she built the digital infrastructure of trust. She monetized the background check, securing a fortune by acting as the absolute gatekeeper for who is allowed inside the homes of America's wealthiest families. Number 8. The Notori Fashion Fortress. The margins of silk. While tech billionaires dominate the headlines, the Notori family proves that extreme wealth can still be extracted from traditional industries if you possess a ruthless financial mind. Josie Notori was not a fashion student who got lucky. She was a trailblazing female investment banker at Merrill Lynch on Wall Street. She understood global financial modeling long before she ever touched a piece of fabric. The Notori fortune was forged by identifying a massive, unexploited gap in the American retail market. In the 1970s, lingerie was either aggressively practical or entirely novelty. There was no middle ground for high-end luxury sleepwear. Notori took the intricate, handcrafted embroidery of her native Philippines and introduced it to the wealthiest retail floors in the United States, securing premium positioning in stores like Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus. She protected this empire through absolute, unyielding vertical integration. While her competitors outsourced their manufacturing to unpredictable third-party factories in China or Vietnam, the Notori family owns their supply chain. They established their own massive manufacturing facilities in the Philippines. By controlling every single step of the process, from the initial design in New York to the stitching in Manila, all the way to the retail distribution hubs in California, they fiercely protect their intellectual property and maintain astronomical profit margins. The Notori power move is geographical arbitrage. They pay manufacturing costs in Philippine pesos but collect their revenue in United States dollars, specifically targeting the affluent, high disposable income consumers of the American West Coast. What observers misunderstand about the Notori dynasty is the nature of their survival. The fashion industry is a graveyard of bankrupt brands that couldn't survive shifting trends. The Notori family survived for decades because they never chased trends. They built a timeless, recession-proof luxury monopoly governed by the cold, calculating logic of a Wall Street investment banker. Number 7. The Ayala Silicon Valley Pipeline. The corporate apex predators. When you reach the highest echelons of global wealth, you do not fear your current competitors. You fear the teenager in a California garage who is currently writing code to destroy your business model. The Ayala family is the oldest and most aristocratic business dynasty in the Philippines, controlling massive swaths of the nation's banking, real estate, and telecommunications infrastructure. But they are not resting on their historical laurels. The Ayalas are aggressively establishing deep, heavily funded outposts in California through their venture capital arms, such as AC Ventures. They make their money from their traditional, unshakable monopolies in Southeast Asia, where they collect rent, telecom fees, and banking interest from millions of citizens. To protect this legacy empire, they deploy massive capital directly into the heart of Silicon Valley. They are actively funding early-stage startups in artificial intelligence, fintech, and advanced logistics. This is not casual angel investing. This is a highly sophisticated corporate defense mechanism. By buying equity in the very startups that threaten to disrupt traditional banking and real estate, the Ayala family ensures that no matter how the global economy evolves, they will own a piece of the architecture. Their power move is utilizing California not as a primary revenue source, but as an elite intelligence-gathering operation. When an Ayala-backed startup in San Francisco develops a breakthrough financial technology, the family immediately imports that software to supercharge their existing banks in the Philippines, crushing local competitors who do not have access to Silicon Valley tech. The public vastly misunderstands old money dynasties, assuming they are slow, bureaucratic dinosaurs. The Ayala family proves that the oldest, wealthiest families survive by acting as apex predators, using the American tech ecosystem as their personal research and development laboratory. Number 6. The Razon Logistics Monopoly. The choke point of capital. While Silicon Valley billionaires fight over the digital attention of consumers, Enrique Razon Jr. operates on a completely different, infinitely more physical plane of reality. Razon is the chairman of International Container Terminal Services Inc. ICTSI, one of the largest independent port operators on the planet. His wealth is not derived from lines of code, It is forged in massive cranes, deep-water docks, and million-ton cargo ships. The money was made by recognizing that international trade is completely dependent on a handful of highly specific geographic choke points. You cannot download a shipping container. It must physically touch land. ICTSI aggressively acquired the rights to manage and operate seaports across the globe, creating an inescapable toll booth for international commerce. Every time a consumer in California orders electronics from Asia or heavy machinery from Europe, there is a statistical probability that Enrique Razon takes a cut of the transit fee. Razon protects his multi-billion-dollar fortune through the ultimate barrier to entry: sovereign infrastructure. You cannot simply decide to build a competing seaport. It requires decades of environmental reviews, billions of dollars in concrete, and the direct blessing of national governments. Once Razon secures a 25-year concession to operate a terminal, his cash flow is virtually guaranteed, completely immune to the volatility of software trends or consumer fads. His ultimate power move is the quiet, relentless expansion of his logistics empire into the Americas, ensuring his capital footprint touches the supply chains feeding the United States. What the average tech investor completely misunderstands about wealth is the illusion of the digital economy. The internet does not exist in a vacuum. E-commerce is entirely useless without the massive, heavily fortified maritime infrastructure that actually moves the cardboard boxes. Enrique Razon does not care which software company wins the digital war, because he owns the physical docks where their server racks are unloaded. Number 5. The Tsai family's American play. The private equity scavengers. The Tsai family, heirs to the late Henry Tsai, control the SM Group, an absolute retail and banking leviathan that dictates the commercial heartbeat of the Philippines. They are the undisputed kings of the shopping mall. However, when a family's net worth swells into the tens of billions, they face a unique problem. There is simply not enough physical land in their home country to deploy their cash. They generated their immense fortune through the brutal, systematic corporatization of the Philippine retail sector. They built malls so massive they essentially function as independent, self-contained cities, capturing the disposable income of millions of citizens every single weekend. To protect this staggering accumulation of capital, the Tsai family quietly executes a massive capital flight strategy, heavily targeting commercial real estate in the United States, particularly the West Coast. During times of American economic distress, such as the 2008 financial crisis or the recent commercial real estate panic triggered by high interest rates, the Tsai family deploys their vast, unleveraged cash reserves. They function as elite corporate scavengers, acquiring premium American office buildings, logistics hubs, and retail spaces at steep discounts when local buyers are paralyzed by fear and frozen credit markets. Their power move is operating with a completely different time horizon. While Wall Street hedge funds panic over quarterly earnings reports, the Tsai family measures their investments in decades and generations. They can afford to buy a massive commercial complex in California, let it sit partially empty during a recession, and wait for the macroeconomic cycle to turn. What the American public misunderstands about foreign direct investment is the level of sophistication involved. The Tsai family does not view California as a place to live. They view the state as a highly regulated safe haven depository for their excess billions, effectively acting as an international private equity fund disguised as a family retail business. Number 4. The Banatao legacy, the architect of the microchip. Long before modern tech founders became global celebrities, Dado Banatao was quietly building the neurological pathways of the digital age. He is widely revered in engineering circles as the father of the semiconductor, and his influence on California's Silicon Valley is so structural that it is practically impossible to quantify. Banatao forged his initial fortune not by building computers, but by fundamentally redesigning how they process information. In the 1980s, personal computers were slow, bulky, and heavily fragmented. Banatao utilized his brilliant engineering mind to invent the first single-chip, 16-bit microprocessor-based calculator and the first Windows graphics accelerator chip. He co-founded Chips and Technologies, which he later sold to the manufacturing titan Intel for hundreds of millions of dollars. He subsequently co-founded S3 Graphics, dominating the early PC graphics market. He literally shrank the computer, accelerating its processing speed and making the modern, lightweight laptop physically possible. To protect and compound his wealth, Banatao executed a flawless pivot from brilliant engineer to apex capital allocator. He founded Tallwood Venture Capital in Palo Alto, California. Instead of working inside the laboratory, he now owns the laboratory. He funnels his massive fortune into the next generation of semiconductor and hardware startups, ensuring that he profits from every new wave of computing architecture. His ultimate power move is his absolute command over the hardware ecosystem. Software is completely useless without the physical silicon required to run it. By controlling Tallwood Venture Capital, Banatao dictates which foundational hardware technologies receive the funding necessary to survive. What modern tech investors completely misunderstand about Silicon Valley is the hierarchy of importance. They worship the software billionaires who built social media apps. They fail to realize that those apps only exist because Dado Banatao engineered the specific silicon architecture that allowed their smartphones to turn on in the first place. His legacy is the very bedrock of California's digital economy. Number 3. The Lewis corporate turnaround, the private equity executioner. In the ruthless, male-dominated world of 1990s international private equity, Loida Nicolas Lewis executed one of the most spectacular, blood-chilling corporate turnarounds in American financial history. The story began in tragedy when her husband, the legendary financier Reginald Lewis, passed away. He had built TLC Beatrice International into the largest black-owned business in the United States, a massive multinational food and beverage conglomerate. The money was originally made through highly aggressive leveraged buyouts. But when Reginald died, the company was drowning in massive high-yield debt, and Wall Street executives circled like sharks, fully expecting the widow to sell the empire at a steep discount. They vastly underestimated Loida Nicolas Lewis. To protect her family's multi-billion-dollar legacy, she did not step aside. She took over as CEO and unleashed a brutal, highly calculated wave of corporate restructuring. She fired underperforming executives, slashed bloated corporate expenses, and sold off non-essential European subsidiaries. She took the capital from those liquidations and aggressively paid down the company's suffocating debt load, instantly stabilizing the balance sheet and maximizing the underlying shareholder equity. Her absolute power move was her legal ruthlessness. When the French government attempted to aggressively tax TLC Beatrice over a complex corporate transaction, Lewis, who was a razor-sharp, bar-certified attorney, did not back down. She sued the French tax authorities and won, saving the corporation tens of millions of dollars. She eventually liquidated the entire company piecemeal, securing a massive, historic financial return for her family and investors. What the public misunderstands about her wealth is the narrative. She wasn't simply a grieving widow who inherited a company. She was a brilliant, cold-blooded financial executioner who outmaneuvered Wall Street insiders, paid off a mountain of toxic debt, and walked away with a pristine, liquid fortune. Number 2. The Murphy Digital Fiefdom, the controller of attention. While the other families on this list deal in real estate, microchips, and physical logistics, Bobby Murphy deals in a much more dangerous, highly lucrative commodity: human attention. Born in Berkeley, California, to a Filipina mother, Murphy is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Snap Inc., the parent company of Snapchat. With an estimated net worth hovering around $4 billion, he operates from Venice, California, as one of the quietest, most lethal operators in modern consumer technology. The money was generated by recognizing a fundamental shift in digital psychology. While Facebook forced users into permanent public records of their lives, Murphy and his co-founder Evan Spiegel wrote the code for ephemeral messaging, photos that disappeared. This completely short-circuited the anxiety of the modern internet, instantly capturing the absolute loyalty of the global teenage demographic. To protect this astronomical wealth, Murphy and Spiegel executed the most aggressive corporate governance strategy in recent Wall Street history. When they took Snap Inc. public on the New York Stock Exchange, they issued non-voting shares to the public. This means that hedge funds and institutional investors can buy the stock and take on the financial risk, but they have absolutely zero say in how the company is run. Murphy and Spiegel retain absolute dictatorial voting control over the corporation. The ultimate power move occurred in 2013 when a young Mark Zuckerberg flew to Los Angeles and offered $3 billion in cash to buy Snapchat. Most 20-somethings would have taken the money and run. Murphy and Spiegel looked the most powerful man in tech in the eye and said no. They bet on their own code, and they won. What the general public completely misunderstands about Bobby Murphy is the nature of his product. Parents think Snapchat is just a silly camera app for sending selfies. In reality, Murphy has built one of the most sophisticated augmented reality engines and behavioral data harvesting machines ever created, effectively controlling the visual communication infrastructure for an entire generation. Number 1. The Ocampo Ghost Fortune, the ultimate invisibility. Finally, we arrive at the absolute pinnacle of Filipino-American wealth in California. If you search for her name, you will find almost nothing. No verified social media accounts, no glossy magazine profiles, no public photographs. Susan Ocampo is the richest Filipina in the United States, commanding an estimated net worth of over $2.3 billion. She is the ultimate Silicon Valley ghost, proving that the highest echelon of power operates entirely in the dark. Ocampo and her late husband, John, generated this staggering fortune by operating in the most complex, highly critical sector of the technology market: radio frequency, RF, semiconductors. They co-founded Sirenza Micro Devices, steering the company through a massive IPO and eventually selling it for hundreds of millions. But that was merely the opening act. Through their private investment vehicle, GAAS Labs, they orchestrated a series of brilliant acquisitions, ultimately becoming the largest individual shareholders and board members of MACOM Technology Solutions, a colossal, NASDAQ-listed chipmaker with a market capitalization exceeding $10 billion. She protects this empire through absolute, terrifying anonymity. In a modern era obsessed with selfies, personal branding, and public validation, Ocampo understands that fame is a massive liability. You cannot protest a billionaire you cannot identify. You cannot target a CEO whose face you have never seen. By erasing her physical presence from the digital landscape, she effectively shielded her family and her assets from the intense, aggressive scrutiny that plagues high-profile tech founders. Her ultimate power move is the exact nature of the technology she controls. MACOM does not build consumer apps or flashy smartphones. They build the deeply complex, highly classified semiconductor architecture required for aerospace, military radar, and global telecommunications infrastructure. She owns the invisible signals that allow the modern world to communicate. What everyone entirely misunderstands about the peak of extreme wealth is the desire for recognition. The media glorifies loud, flamboyant billionaires who buy social media platforms and launch rockets. Susan Ocampo proves that true, absolute power does not need to beg for attention. The ultimate luxury in California isn't a private jet or a mansion in Malibu. The ultimate luxury is absolute, impenetrable invisibility. From the heavily guarded docks managing global trade to the invisible microchips powering military radar, these Filipino dynasties prove that real wealth is never loud. They bypass the traditional American gatekeepers, leveraging brutal corporate turnarounds, geographical arbitrage, and dictatorial corporate structures to build untouchable empires right in the heart of California. Which of these quiet monopolies surprised you the most? The augmented reality fiefdom, or the completely invisible semiconductor ghost? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to understand who truly controls the infrastructure of your world, like and subscribe to Global Status. We track the money, so you don't have to.